Thank you for joining the Transform Impossible, which is India's first emerging tech, deep tech meets sustainability podcast. I'm your host, Eddie Abu, and today I have with us Mr. Raviteja Dodda, who's an entrepreneur, technologist, and a storyteller, an alumnus of IIT-Kharagpur. Ravi is the co-founder and the CEO of MoEngage, an insights-led customer engaged platform. He has been recognized in the business world, Disrupt 40 under 40, and Forbes 30 under 30 list. Ravi is passionate about mentoring early stage founders who face challenges like he did. So Ravi, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast and talk to you about emerging technologies and what you're building. So really, thank you and appreciate you giving time. So you have been part of two startups earlier. MoEngage happens to be your third venture, which was incubated at an accelerator. So share your entrepreneurial journey and what nudged you to set up MoEngage.
Thanks, Eddie, for having me on this podcast. Glad to be here. So it actually goes way back to kind of 2011. So I'm actually a computer science grad from IIT-Kharagpur, like you said. I worked briefly at Cisco Systems in Bangalore for about 7 months after 2010. And then between 2011 and 2014, I ran the consumer business before MoEngage. It was called Delight Circle. And while we were doing that, Delight Circle was one of the first few mobile companies in India and also globally. This was time even before, let's say, someone like a Flipkart had a mobile application, right? So these were those sort of times. And we were one of the first few mobile companies back then. And so we wanted to connect retailers and end consumers through a mobile first approach, where as an end consumer, you would discover offers and coupons. Let's say if you want to buy a pair of jeans, you can actually kind of use the app to understand which are the best locations, best stores to actually kind of purchase from, right? This was a time period where the consumer behavior is changing from like, let's say, desktops to kind of leapfrogging completely to the mobile sort of application sort of a behavior has been happening. So every brand is kind of going in the direction, and then seeing this pain point ourselves at Delight Circle, we started MoEngage from the pain point that we have observed. And right from day one, we wanted it to be a global opportunity. So in 2014, we incorporated the company, and then we started building out with a global mindset right from day one. So that's how we ended up starting up MoEngage out of our own pain point.
Who would have thought, like 20 years back, companies would be built around mobile, because it's such a revolution. It's not just mobile, it's the internet. I think it's democratized opportunities. It has democratized knowledge, and it's created so much opportunities. And right now there are companies which are understanding that it's not just mobiles, it's the social media, which is packed with opportunities. Through the pandemic, I've heard like many stories, of entrepreneurs. Some have had to shut shop, some have had to pivot, exit, but there are also who have flourished. So how did COVID impact MoEngage? First question. And what has been the most important lesson from the pandemic which you would like to share to my listeners?
Of course, the COVID pandemic is obviously a once in sort of probably a generation sort of a thing that has happened, right? So as MoEngage, so we, just to give you more background, so we work with various consumer brands across various verticals. These are consumer brands across verticals like retail, e-commerce, and then banking, financial services, media entertainment, travel, hospitality, telecommunications, and so on. And we are basically helping most of these companies with the digital customer engagement, right? So one of the things, so we have seen a lot of positive tailwinds in terms of digital transformation across all the verticals, right? So companies which resisted digital transformation, like banking or offline retail or insurance. So these are some of the verticals which have resisted digital transformation for a while and have had to kind of transform digitally in a very short span of time. And so basically something that would have happened in probably 10 years has started happening in like less than a year, right? So that is something that we have seen and that basically kind of helped as a very positive tailwind for us. And there are verticals like a mobility or a travel and hospitality segments that have come There are customers of ours which have actually kind of have impacted because of the pandemic, and then they've had to kind of change their approach. So we have seen overall as a company, we have seen good positive tailwinds. Other than that initial uncertainty in those early 2020s, like what's happening in the world and so on. Post that, I think we have seen quite a bit of positive tailwinds, right? So the biggest lesson is that, I mean, we realize that how we can really work and be a lot more productive being distributed. And we have been a distributed company, that we have offices in North America, Europe, and other markets. But even from the product engineering standpoint and many of the support function standpoint, we realize that we can actually work remote, and we really transformed ourselves, and not only us, and every company must have transformed. What's very important in the pandemic is basically kind of empathizing with people, like not and trusting your people. So those are some things that we had to kind of drive, like empathy, and the other part is a trust. Because as a company, we have been kind of taking an OKR driven culture, given always been an ownership driven and data driven sort of as a company. So that really helped us during the pandemic, and being that sort of like not really micromanaging people, but more around keeping people focused more on the goals. And that really helped us during the pandemic as well. So
though the traditional businesses have been impacted terribly, and then there is those other side who are digitized have flourished so clearly that the approach to the future is digitization. The ones who are digitized are the ones who are most likely to flourish. Now, MoEngage as a company has been leveraging artificial intelligence for customer engagement, intelligent customer engagement. Now, artificial intelligence is a tool which excites me, but it scares me also, because it excites me because it can open up huge economical benefits and bring transformations across industries, and mainly healthcare, agriculture, and education, especially in India. But the downside is that obviously, that there are countries which are militarizing it at this point of time, and most of the nations are spending billions of dollars on militarizing, artificial intelligence. They are also leveraging AI for data manipulation. So, what excites you most about AI, and how is MoEngage leveraging AI for intelligent customer engagement?
see, I think what's important to note is that there are certain problems that only can be solved through AI, right? Because there are problems which basically are like scale problems, and which can only be solved. And I can give examples from the context of MoEngage. So we have consumer brands who have users anywhere from hundreds of thousands of users to hundreds of millions of users, right? And if you as a brand, let's say a Flipkart or a Big Basket or any such brand, wants to kind of personalize communications on an individual basis, depending upon what every individual customer needs, what every individual customer is in the customer journey or in the life cycle, and what every individual customer is in terms of their demographics, their needs, their preferences, their affinities, and so on, right? And then if you think of it and like do it at scale of hundreds of millions of users, that can only be possible by leveraging artificial intelligence and automation, right? So, and that's what we at MoEngage enable. So we're basically solving a problem which only can be solved through automation and AI. And that's how we are leveraging artificial intelligence, helping these consumer brands to really kind of drive one-to-one personalized experiences, which help them drive better revenue. At the same time, also provides a better experience for end consumers. And if you look at MoEngage, we say we enable brands to be customer obsessed. And that is good for the end consumers, because if you're an end consumer, you would want the brand to kind of understand you and then send the right communications or offers and in a less time span, and not kind of spamming you, right? So it's both good for end consumers as well as good for the brands. So I think it's important to kind of leverage AI for the right kind of use cases and obviously for good. I mean, and that's my view. I mean, like you said, I mean, there are healthcare, there is agriculture, and there are many of these verticals where AI can make a large impact. And I'm a big believer in that. You can actually make large, meaningful impact in a very positive way, both for from social perspective as well.
The reason I do this podcast is because I try to create awareness on this humongous growth of technology. I think this decade there is going to be the greatest technological transition that humanity will see, because there is not a single technology. I think most of the technologies are converging, be it artificial intelligence, IoT, blockchain, synthetic biology, quantum computing. And I guess once they come together, they will start creating transformation which is not even fathomable for a lot of people. But I guess we need to involve everybody, make people aware and businesses aware about its transformation nature and also about its downside, that so that we tread carefully on this journey. Now we are moving from the transactional economy, which has been from the longest time, to a relational economy. Customer engagement has become key. So you also mentioned that brands are now customer obsessed, and rightfully so. And that's the only way for businesses to survive and thrive going forward. Could you share your pricing plans and give a few examples on how your service has added value to businesses in terms of ROI, cost reduction, and maybe like a growth of a customer base?
We are obsessed about our customers and their end users, right? As I mentioned, and it's a big brand promise and a pillar for us. So our pricing is also kind of, from the perspective, is aligned towards the business outcomes that we generate for our customers. And one of the ways that our customers track the business outcomes is how many active number of customers that they are actually engaging with on a monthly basis, right? So so our pricing model is kind of tied. Is a tier-based pricing based on the number of these monthly active customers, so that we also and that's a metric that can only be improved by driving better engagement with their customers, right? So that way we are also kind of aligned with our customers. We also have a skin in the game, and we are invested in their success. And examples of how we add value with our customers. So for most of our customers, we have seen that 10 to 15% of their revenue, anywhere from 10 to 15% of the revenue, is driven by the kind of the communications that they are triggering through MoEngage in terms of the attribution, right? So we're already making meaningful impact for our brands in terms of the kind of the whether it is revenue or whether it is kind of the lifetime value and so on metrics. In terms of some examples of how we add value for our customers, there are multitudes of examples. For example, so we work with Airtel Group across to help them with all the digital customer engagement across their Airtel Thanks application, Wink Music, Airtel Extreme, and various such points. And Airtel Extreme is basically kind of a video application or the OTT application through which you can watch live TV, you can watch on-demand content from different sources. One of the things that we help Airtel Extreme is to really improve their overall time that their users spend on the application. Some of the use cases are, for example, they when there are breaking news information or like sports, so they need to be able to kind of send real-time alerts to their users as soon as possible. That's one of the use case. And MoEngage is a platform which enables that sort of scale, where we enable them to send like 30 to 40 million notifications or users in one single minute. Just think of it in that sort of scale, right? So, and similarly, like when you look at someone like a Ghana, which is a music streaming company, we help them drive personalized music recommendations to their end users. Like they have hundreds of millions of users, and then we enable them send. If you're getting communication from Ghana, like a notification or so on, so those are all powered by us, powered by MoEngage, where we are helping them kind of send highly personalized music recommendations to every individual customer, depending upon the customer's preferences, interests, and then thereby we are helping someone like Ghana increase the number of premium subscriptions and also the advertising driven revenue. So yeah, I think there are some examples I can just quickly share.
suddenly there's a huge shift. There's a content explosion. Everybody is getting onto social media, and brands are looking at social media at a different lens. How important is social media going to be from the spending point of view for a brand for 2021 and going forward?
On social media, right? If you look at right now, initially it used to be more like there used to be more social media used to be predominant across like Facebook, Twitter, and very few touch points, right? But today we have seen that there are a lot more social media platforms that have emerged with the like, for example, with we have Ropozo or ShareChat, Moj, we have Josh of Daily Hunt. So we actually work with a good number of these companies like Trell, ShareChat, and then Proposo and so on. And that's one great part of MoEngage is that we get to see actually what's happening across across the world with working with some of these brands. So and then obviously the messaging platforms, whether it is WhatsApp and so on. So those also are kind of are really important. Right? So today so for a brand, then it becomes that, I mean, I should be, depending upon the target customers, I mean, I need to be very clear about my target customer segment, because for every brand, there could be different type of target customer segment. And they need to understand the target customer segments well, and then identify which are the right platforms for them to engage across, right? So now there are more platforms for them to engage with their end customers. And then there are new formats, right? So earlier, just like Facebook is like a more content or post format, and Twitter is like a more shorter content. Now there are platforms like Moj, ShareChat, Moj of ShareChat, and so on, where you actually can use a different sort of content format, which is like a short video format, and so on, where you can also leverage influencer marketing, right? So we have seen influencer marketing seeing more traction, where some of these influencers across these short video platforms can promoting the brands as well, right? So there are more new ways of engaging with the end customers, and as a brand and as a brand marketing person, the brand, you need to kind of be up to date with the new emerging trends and actually kind of leverage those as soon as possible.
Entire dynamics of engaging with a customer is changing. I would like to talk about your competitors. Who are your current competitors at this point in time, and what makes MoEngage unique or stand out from its competitors?
Traditional platforms which we are disrupting, like these are platforms like Adobe Marketing Cloud, Salesforce Marketing Cloud, Oracle Marketing Cloud, and we also come and there are many of these point solutions, like whether it is email marketing providers or SMS marketing providers or mobile messaging providers. So we actually disrupting many of these kind of companies. So what makes MoEngage unique? We call it as like we have three pillars. So let me start with the innovation-driven product, right? So we have a product. We call it as we say that one of the unique aspects of our product is the insights-led customer engagement. What I mean by that is that today for a brand and for a marketing person in the brand, so the existing platforms out there, they allow you to kind of create campaigns, set up all these workflows, but they don't provide the required insights for a marketing person to figure out what type of campaigns I should be really setting up, what sort of segments I should be using, what type of users I should be really targeting. So that sort of insights is really missing in many of these traditional platforms, and in many of the competitors that I talked about as well. So MoEngage is unique from that perspective. Like we call it as insights-led engagement. We provide the required actionable insights for marketing teams to figure out what type of segments to target, what type of campaigns to run, and so on. So that's really powerful. We enable the best-in-class channel deliverability than any of our competitors out there. So thereby we are actually kind of generating more revenue. The other part is a whole AI-driven optimization. So I think I talked about the AI, how we leverage artificial intelligence at a high level. So MoEngage automatically optimizes the timing of the communications, the segments, sessions, the content of the communication, like what content should go to each individual customer, and also the kind of the cadence, like after I send a communication, at what point I should be sending a follow-up communication, and so on. So all of these are kind of automatically optimized with artificial intelligence, and that's something also very unique to MoEngage. Then the second part is the customer obsession I talked about, where We have a team that's really obsessed not just only about our customers, but also their end users. So we take a very partnership-driven mindset approach to understanding in kind of providing the right kind of solutions to our customers. And then the third part is a learning community, because today every marketing person, as I mentioned, they need to kind of keep learning. They need to kind of understand what are the different ways to kind of drive growth. So they need to be learning not just from us, like MoEngage, but they also need a lot of best practices from some of the other companies. So how do we kind of connect this community? So that's where we have a community called Hash Growth, where we bring all of these people together through workshops, through master classes, and then they learn from each other in terms of what are the best practices, what is working for the other brand, and then they can learn from them. So these are the three pillars that really differentiates MoEngage.
I guess, lifelong learning, I think, is the key, because going forward, that's the core. I think one needs to understand, because if you keep on learning, pivoting, you will create businesses that will create like really huge impact. Now I'll go back to COVID, because it's been a catalyst. It's been a catalyst not just for emerging tech, but also for an outlook on entrepreneurship. Because today almost everyone I talk to, be it housewife or young kids, they are all building businesses and they're thinking differently. And I guess the reason they're thinking differently, I think it's largely because of COVID. And COVID made it extremely clear that when shit hits the roof, you're always on your own. There is no support or consideration. And this was very, very clear. Government spoke about the 20 lakh crore package was not there. Education institutes, of no consideration. Utility companies decided to overcharge us, rather than having some consideration. The banking industry loaded additional pain, and there was super high interest in the name of moratorium. So we, the common people, don't have the time to read through those always hidden terms and conditions and mandatory. And that's the reason I believe that most of these big organizations have always taken advantage of customers or the consumers who keep the engines of an economy running. Because so far we have just been a pawn in a big ecosystem where we have always been manipulated and used in ways unknowingly. Is it time now that the consumer takes back the power?
So my view on this is definitely, like as I mentioned, every consumer brand needs to be customer obsessed if they're not already, right? Because this today the end consumers have so many choices. If you take any vertical, any category, so there are multiple choices that they have. If you are not obsessed about offering the right customer experience to your consumers in terms of flexibility, in terms of convenience, in terms of pricing, so consumers have a lot of choices. If you're not obsessed about your consumers, you will definitely kind of lose in the span of time. And like you said, with the whole technological transformation that is happening overall, I think I was just reading somewhere that the top companies on Nasdaq are changing every certain time frame, right? Whether it's 10 years and so on. So why is that happening? Because there's technological transformation. There are brands which are not being relevant to the times. So it's really important to be relevant to the times. It's really important to be obsessed about your customers, so that because if you're obsessed about your customers, you also understand how their needs are evolving, and then you actually kind of change your strategy accordingly.
Right. Yeah. So I hope that technology creates a way where more power goes into the hands of the consumers in ways of possibly blockchain coming and possibly giving the data ownership back onto onto the consumer, rather than the big tech holding these data. Now there's this huge tech revolution which is going on. There is this virtual world which is being monetized. Virtual assets are being monetized. Just recently, a non-fungible token, a JPEG art to be precise, sold for $69 million. Now there's these platforms such as Roblox, Decentralized, Fortnite, and there are so many other platforms which are selling virtual locations advertisers to monetize it. Then there is augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, spatial web, which is going. I think in another couple of years, we will have maybe a head wearable device like this, which will converge your maybe a mobile and a computer into one single wearable interface. Taking us into the spatial web. So, how is MoEngage preparing for that future?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as I mentioned, if you're not keeping yourself relevant, then obviously, like we will be behind overall, right? So, as a company, we have been an innovation-driven company, as I mentioned. So we are very close. We keep closely tracking all the emerging trends because as a company, like when you say customer engagement company, we need to be there at every touch point a brand interacts with a consumer, whether it's through wearables or whether it is through home devices or which is basically kind of increasing the growth, and whether it is virtual reality and mixed reality as well, right? So I think definitely we are always keeping track and keeping on track of what's happening. And as the kind of the adoption increases, we basically will be doing more and more services and products on top from that perspective.
So far, brands have been able to measure your views, your likes, your dislikes, social shares or ROI with data analytics. But now we have entered the world where big tech is working on measuring or emotional resonance. Brands are leveraging artificial intelligence to tap into consumers' face with facial recognition, eye tracking, to understand biomarkers and stuff like that. So most of the consumers are completely oblivious to the degree of manipulation. Should the customers be informed on the decisions they believe they were actually taking, but were being manipulated by the data collected? And what are your views on neuromarketing and biometrics and things like that? Are we pushing the barriers to achieve profit in any cost with technology, the tools like this?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. Yeah, I think the good part is in the recent past, there has been a lot more focus on privacy, especially in the last 3 to 4 years. Every government, like whether it's European government, even in the US, we have in the Europe we have GDPR, we have in the US we have CCPA, and then we are seeing that emerging more and more across all the different governments. So that's a good thing for the consumer because we need to provide consent before a brand does it automatically through technology. So that whether you track me and then if I don't want you to be tracked, if I don't want myself to be tracked, I have the option to kind of communicate to the brand that please don't track me anymore, like right to be forgotten. So with the GDPR, there are multiple kind of consents and rights that are offered for the end consumers to protect the end consumers' privacy, right? So similarly, I think with CCPA regulation, the California Privacy Act, that's something has happened. So it's really important for a brand to build a customer trust. Otherwise, and the way you do it is by transparently letting them know is like what sort of data are you tracking, and even platforms like Android and iOS now with all the new applications they're continuously adding updates in terms of how a given app what sort of information is a app tracking. So that's all good things overall. So what sort of information is app tracking, and how are they going to use it? So as long as you as a brand communicate to the customer that okay, I'm going to use this to kind of improve the experience for you as a consumer. Today, because if you look at many of like tools like we are using like Zoom, as long as they are leveraging these AI solutions to kind of make like let's say the background that we are having, right? I mean, it's powered by an intelligence, right? So because it's helping us, right? So and you as a consumer would opt for it. So it's really important to kind of provide that kind of understanding to the consumer on how we are going to leverage the information that you're tracking. And then that builds a trust, and that obviously kind of drives adoption for the brand. So I think that's my view overall on this topic.
Right. Any advice to budding entrepreneurs or startups who are looking at setting up new business, especially in the field of customer engagement?
You as a company, like if you as a budding entrepreneur want to kind of build something in this space, you should just have a good clarity of the problem statement that you're really solving for a brand and your value proposition. and whether it is scalable enough. Because it's the space around the market technology space is sort of, and there are many solutions. Like, so there's a lot of fragmentation. So how do you stand out yourself? What is so unique about you as your product? So you need to be having that more clarity and really validate that. Before you venture into it. Yeah.
So I have also been doing a weekly mentorship program, where you give back to startups. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
When you're a first-time entrepreneur, you actually make more mistakes than the right things.
Right.
So the more you can actually kind of reduce that, the more you can actually kind of reduce the time to kind of get to the success. Because it's the most important thing is time. More than money, to be honest. Today, there's a lot more liquidity in the market, and time is the most important piece. So how do you really make sure that you're investing your time in the right areas, right? So that's where the mentorship helps. And it's sort of what I do is more of like giving back in one way. It's not something like I'm just giving back to people who reach out to me. I don't specifically kind of advertise that program with the bandwidth that I have, but people who reach out to me, I'm always kind of open to help. And Saturday is a time where I actually kind of get some time to kind of spend. So that's what I do.
Wish you the very best, Ravi. Really appreciate you being part of the Transform Impossible podcast. Any last notes, and what's your future roadmap for MoEngage and yourself?
The good part with being in, if you're starting up in India, there are a lot of problems in India,
right?
Which you really you just need to kind of identify them, and then kind of and there are a ton of problems, like you said, in categories like agriculture, healthcare, and a lot of things just kind of really blown out in proportion, and really are more visible now with the pandemic, right? So I think there's ton of problems for people to solve, for budding entrepreneurs to solve. And if you look at markets like North America and Europe, people are solving more like not painkillers problems, but more like nice to have things. But in India, I think we have a lot of painkiller problems itself, which can have meaningful impact. And instead of building the next lending company, I think entrepreneurs should think about think about some of these meaningfully impactful problems to be solved. I think that's one thing I just want to add. From the MoEngage perspective, so for us, I think in terms of for us, we are glad to kind of make a meaningful impact at scale, because we are working with so many brands and helping kind of power digital experiences for like 700 million plus users on a monthly basis, right? So it's glad to kind of maybe be making impact at that scale. And we always want to continuously improve our product offerings, and also improve the overall kind of the learnings for the marketing teams and so on, in terms of how they can leverage the customer engagement platforms like us. So yeah, that's I would wrap it there.
Pleasure talking to you and getting the insights on the platform that you're building. Wish you and your team the very best. We are living in a very exciting time. There is so much of these technologies which is coming, and it's not rocket science. Most of the people, I guess, make it very jargon-led, and that kind of scares off people. That artificial intelligence,
yep.
Augmented reality, virtual reality. But I guess it's extremely simple if you spend some time. You had mentioned earlier that time is the most precious resource. There is a ongoing overload of content, but if we funnel it and choose the content that works for us best, and take those and implement and build something, I think we will be, the entire nation will be in a better space. And you also said that meaningful companies, there are so many problems here in India. If we can look at it in a meaningful way, I think we'll be able to create so much deeper impact besides obviously the economical benefits. So thank you,
yep.
Ravi. Really appreciate you being part of the Transform Impossible podcast. And to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, please press the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye-bye.